Hello students, today we're working in our January packet and you're on this equivalent fractions page. It's a little bit hard to read the title, but this does say equivalent or equal to fractions that are equal to each other. And so we're going to be doing this, these ones here is really like a simplifying, but there's missing numbers. This is like simplifying. It says write the correct number in each blank. So this is the example for this one, that 2/6, if we divided the top by 2 and the bottom by 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1, 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 2/6 equals 1/3. So let's take a look at this. How many sixths equal 1/3? Well, what's happening here to go from 6 to 3? We're dividing by 2, right? So I have to divide that by 2. So what divided by 2 equals 1? What divided by 2 equals 1? 2 divided by 2 equals 1. So that blank there is 2/6. This one's a little bit easier, this 3/4, because we're still making an equivalent fraction. 3/4 is how many eighths? So 4, how do we get from 4 to 8? We times by 2. So I do the same thing to the bottom that I did to the top. 3 times 2 is 6. So 3/4 and 6/8 are equivalent fractions. Now we have 3/4 is how many 16ths? So we're going from 4 to 16. What are we doing? 4 times 4. So 3 times 4, we have to do the same thing to the top that we do to the bottom. 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, let's take a look at this one. We went from 2 to 6, so we're getting bigger. 2 times 3 equals 6. So the same thing to the top that we did to the bottom. So what times 3 equals 9? Something times 3 equals 9. Well, 3. 3 halves equals 9/6. So we're going to keep on trekking. 1/2 equals how many fourths? To go from 2 to 4, are we multiplying or dividing? Multiplying. 2 times 2. So we do the same thing to the top that we did to the bottom. 1 times 2 is 2. 1/2 and 2/4 are the same. They're equivalent fractions. 6/5 is how many tenths? Well, we're going from 5 to 10. Are we multiplying or dividing? Multiplying times 2. Do the same thing to the top that I did to the bottom. 6 times 2 is 12. Okay, let's do 2 more and then I'm going to have you do some work on your own. To go from 8 to 2, are we multiplying or dividing? 8 to 2, we're dividing. 8 divided by what equals 2? 8 divided by 4. So we have to do the same thing to the top that we did to the bottom. What divided by 4 equals 1? What something divided by 4 equals 1? And remember, opposite of division is multiplication, so 1 times 4 equals 4. Is that right? 4 divided by 4 equals 1? Yeah. Okay, 16 to 4. Are we multiplying or dividing? We're dividing. 16 divided by what equals 4? 4. Do the same thing to the top that we do to the bottom. 12 divided by 4 equals 3. So 12/16 is the same as 3/4. I want you to pause here and try to do this row alone. Just this row. Pause the video, try and do that row, and then come back and check your work. Okay, let's check this work. We did 3 to 6, that's 3 times 2. Do the same thing to the top that we did to the bottom. 2 times 2 is 4. So 2/3 and 4/6 are equivalent. From 4 to 8, we're multiplying times 2. Same thing to the top that we do to the bottom. 4 times 2 is 8. Oh, that makes sense, you guys, because 4/4 is 1 whole, right? And 8/8 is still 1 whole. So we didn't change anything there. We made an equivalent fraction. From 4 to 8, ooh, we just did this. We multiply times 2. Same thing to the top that we did to the bottom. 1 times 2 is 2. And then finally, our last one on here, from 6 to 2, we're going to divide by what? It's getting smaller, so we choose divide. 6 divided by 3. Same thing to the top that we did to the bottom. 3 divided by 3 equals 1. Okay, now I want you to go ahead and pause this video and complete this last row right here. Complete this last row in this section. Pause the video here. Okay, checking our work now. Please pause it after each one if you need time to write in. We're going from 8 to 16, so we're getting bigger, so we're multiplying. 8 times what equals 16? Times 2. Same thing to the top that we did to the bottom. 5 times 2 is 10. So we can manipulate these. We can multiply or divide, and as long as we do the same thing to the top that we do to the bottom, we always have equivalent fractions. 2 to 4. We're getting bigger, so we have to multiply. 2 times 2 is 4, so we do the same thing to the top that we did to the bottom. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 halves is 6 fourths. 8 to 16. We're getting bigger, so we're multiplying. 8 times what equals 16? 8 times 2. Same thing to the top that we did to the bottom. 7 times 2 is 14. And then finally, 24 to 8. We're getting smaller, so we divide. 24 divided by what equals 8? 24 divided by 3. So I do 9 divided by 3. I do the same thing to the top that I did to the bottom. And 9 divided by 3 is 3. So 3/8 and 9/24 are the same. This is the simplified version of it. Okay, this next example is this one here, and it's converting each fraction, each fraction as a whole or mixed number in simplest form. So if we have 1 and 1/8, you can see that that's 8/8 is 1 whole, that's 1 whole, and 1/8 is 9/8. Oh, that's the bottom one. Okay, strike that. We'll do that in just a second. Okay, we're going to do these ones. Write each fraction as a whole or mixed number in simplest form. So 5/3. So we could decompose this fraction as 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thirds. Well, I know that 3 of them is 1 whole. 1, 2, 3 thirds is 1 whole. So how many do I have left over? 1, 2. So my answer here is 1 whole, because I used 3 of them for that, and 1 2 thirds left over. 1 and 2 thirds. Let's look at 8/4. Now remember, this line also means divided by. This is 5 divided by 3, but this is 8 divided by 4. What's 8 divided by 4? Oh, 2. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Now you could certainly go like this. We could decompose it. 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. I need 8 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But 1, 2, 3, 4 of them is 1 whole, and 4 of them is 1 whole. 1, 2 wholes. Okay, 10/8. Well, I can decompose it. How many eighths is it going to take to make 1 whole? 1 whole is 8/8. And then how many do I have left over? If I take 8 away from that, I have 2. 1 and 2/8. But it does say to put it in simplest form. And that is, both of those numbers are even, so I know I can take out 2. So if I divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2, 2 divided by 2 equals 1, and 8 divided by 2 equals 4. So my answer there is 1 and 1/4. There's my 1 whole. We can't forget that. That's 8/8 that we took out. 8/6. Well, 6/6 would be 1 whole, correct? 6/6 is 1 whole, and then I have 2 left over. 6, 7, 8. I have 8/6 total. But 2 I can divide out of 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So this answer is 1 whole and 1/3. 1 whole, there's my 6/6, and then 1/3 left over. Okay, let's do the next row together. 9 divided by 4, 9/4. Well, I know that 4/4 is 1 whole. How many do I have left? 5. So actually, I can take another And I can do 4/4 plus another 4/4 for 8. I have 1 left and 1/4. So 1 whole plus 1 whole plus 1/4. So my answer there is 2 and 1/4. 2 and 1/4. 9 halves. 9 halves. So I know that 2 halves is 1 whole. And then another 2 halves, because I've got 9 of them. I'm just decomposing them, is 1 whole. That's 2, 4. I can do more. Another 2 halves is 6. Another 2 halves is 8. Let's see, I have 2, 4, 6, 8, and I have 1 left. So my answer is 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus a half. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 4 and a half. 4 and a half. And we'll just mark off this one here because we're running out of room. Mark off that section right there. 4/4. 4 divided by 4 is 1 whole. 4/4, we know that's our magic ones right there. 4/4. Okay, 13/6. Well, I know that 6/6 is 1 whole. And now I have how many left over? 13 minus 6. I have 7 left over. Ooh, so I can fit another whole one. 6/6. 6/6 plus 6/6 is 12/6, and I have 1 left over. So I have 1 whole plus another whole plus a 6. So 2 and 1/6. Okay, and then this last row here, I want you to try and do yourself. And then we're going to come back and check your work. So try and do that last whole row by yourself, starting with 10/3. Starting with 10/3. Okay, let's check our work. I've got, let's see, 3/3 is 1 whole. I've got 7 left, so I can definitely fit another whole. I've got 6, I've got 4 left. Oh, I can fit another one. And I always can check my work. I can go 3/3 plus 3/3 plus 3. So they're all the same denominator, so I can add 3, 6, 9. So I've got 1 left plus 1/3. So 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3 and 1/3 for that one. 7 halves. 7 halves. So I know that 2 halves is 1 whole. And another 2 halves is 1 whole. Let's see, 2, 4. I can do another one. 6. Let's see, 2, 4, 6. I've got 1 more plus a half. So 1, 2, 3 and a half. 9/8. Well, I know that 8/8 is 1 whole. 9 minus 8 is 1. So it's 1 and 1/8. 1 and 1/8. And then the last one on this row, you guys, 9/5. I know that 5/5, this is an ugly one, 5/5 is 1 whole. And if I subtract, 9/5 minus 5/5 is 4/5 left over. So it's 1 and 4/5. Okay, last bit down here, you guys. This one's actually pretty easy. So there's a couple ways we can do this. We're writing each mixed number as a fraction. So this is a mixed number. So there's a couple ways we can do that. Remember that this 1 whole is actually 8/8, right? 1 whole is 8/8. So what's 8/8 plus 1/8? Well, it's 9/8. And that's the easy way that's one of the ways to do it because we know that. But like this one, we'd have to say, okay, that 2 is, now we're in fifths here. So we would have to say that 2 is 5/5, that's 1, plus 5/5, that's 2. So 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11, 11/5. Now the easiest way to do this is to do this quick step where you're going to take your denominator and you're going to multiply it by the whole number, and then add the numerator. That doesn't look like. You're going to multiply it first, then you're going to add. So what's 4 times 1? 4 plus 3, 5, 6, 7. 7, keep the denominator. Let's do that again. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 1 is 19, keep the denominator. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9, keep the denominator. And remember, if you turned this into fourths, you'd get a 4 fourths plus a 4 fourths plus my 1 fourth. So really we just did 2, 8, 9. It's the same way. This is just a little bit step faster. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 5, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Keep the denominator. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Keep the denominator. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 7 is 15. Keep the denominator. Go ahead and try and do this last half on your own and see if you can finish those. And then come back and check your work. Pause the video. Okay, so here you would have done 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2, 10, 11, over 3. 16 times 1 is 16, plus 5, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, over 16. Keep the denominator. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3, keep the denominator. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 3, 17, 18, 19, keep the denominator. And please feel free to pause after any of these if you need to correct your work. I should have said that at the beginning. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Keep the denominator. 10 times 1 is 10, plus 7 is 17. Keep the denominator. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Keep the denominator. And then we're going to go 8 times 1 is 8, plus 5, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Keep the denominator. Great job, my friends, with working with equivalent fractions. Keep up the good work.